You, before I start, could I just ask everyone to put your hands together and thank the men and women who are serving us food and drinks tonight. They're doing a great job. They're working on. Thank you. Good evening. My name is George Fatheree. I have the very special honor of presenting the designation of this year's Pediatric Epilepsy Fellowships. When our son Clayton was 9 months old, he had his first status seizure. It's also known as status epilepticus. A status seizure is when the brain gets stuck in a state of perpetual seizure without pause, sometimes for up to 30 minutes or longer. Frequently, status seizures end with permanent brain damage and have mortality rates as high as 20%. With Clayton's first status seizure, he seized for 9 minutes before collapsing. When he awoke several hours later, he had lost the ability to respond to sound, and he spent the next 18 months of his life existing in a vegetative state. Now, we do not yet have a universal cure for epilepsy, but we have found an effective and safe way to stop a status seizure. It's called Diastat. For all the parents in the audience tonight who rely on Diastat, can I get an amen Diastat, please? Amen Diastat. For those of you who aren't familiar with Diastat, it's like an EpiPen for seizures. It's a rescue drug, and it stops seizures within seconds. Now, since we never know when a seizure will strike, Diastat was especially designed and has been FDA approved, just like the EpiPen, to be used by non-medical persons, by mom and dad, other family members, friends, and teachers. However, in 2009, California's Board of Registered Nursing issued an advisory to every school district in the state stating that while a child's at school, Diastat can only be administered by a licensed nurse. The problem is that fewer than 5% of our public schools employ full-time nurses. I think we'd all agree we should have a full-time nurse at every school, but the reality is that we don't. And even if we did, we'd still need others to be trained to administer Diastat in emergency situations when a nurse was not available. The position taken by the nursing board left thousands of parents who relied on Diastat with an agonizing decision. We could send our kids to school and literally risk their lives, or we could keep them at home and deny them an education. Recognizing the injustice of this position, State Senator Bob Huff introduced Senate Bill 161 to permit school employees to volunteer to be trained to administer Diastat in emergency situations when a nurse wasn't available. Now, unfortunately, this bill was met with fierce opposition by two of the state's most powerful unions, who in the previous year had used their tremendous political clout and financial resources to defeat similar bills. The unions launched an all-out attack to kill SB 161, demanding that elected officials vote against the bill and threatening to oppose those who dared support it. In response, the Epilepsy Foundation of Greater Los Angeles, in collaboration with Epilepsy California, an advocacy group formed by the 3 epilepsy foundations in the state, organized a grassroots movement to fight for our children and to pass SB 161. As a result of these efforts, and against harrowing odds, Senate Bill 161 was signed into law last fall. On behalf of individuals with epilepsy throughout the state and their families, the Epilepsy Foundation would like to thank everyone who helped pass SB 161, including especially the staff and leadership of our epilepsy foundations in Epilepsy California, the family members and friends who called their elected officials, sent letters, traveled to Sacramento to advocate for our kids, and our wonderful doctors whose expert testimony was critical to correct the lies spread by the bill's opponents. Now, as was already mentioned, as timing would have it, today's election day, so the election officials that we honor unfortunately cannot be here with us this evening. Still, we'd like to recognize the bill's author, Senator Huff, a strong supporter of our cause, to whom we remain grateful for his courage and leadership. And tonight we have very special gratitude for each of the elected officials who voted yes for Senate Bill 161. In the face of special interest opposition and partisan pressure, these individuals stood up to protect our kids. This year, the Epilepsy Foundation and Mark and Andrew have agreed to name the fellowships to be funded with the proceeds of tonight's dinner as the supporters of Senate Bill 161 Pediatric Epilepsy Fellowship in honor of the 81 state legislators who voted yes to pass the bill. The names of these officials are listed in the program, and I'm supposed to say that they're on the screens, but I can say that they're not on the screens, but they're listed in the program. Please, guys, call them, email them, send them a letter, go see them, tell them thank you for standing up for our kids. Many of these representatives are facing retaliation for voting yes for SB 161. We need to let them know that so long as they've got our backs, we've got theirs. Now, there's one additional person that I'd like to recognize this evening, and I'd like to ask Susan Pechasqueta, the Executive Director of the Epilepsy Foundation of Greater Los Angeles, to please join me on stage to honor this very special individual. Like most successful campaigns, our campaign to pass SB 161 had a fearless leader, Ann Kinkor. Ann, would you please join us on stage? Guys, Ann's passion for this campaign and eloquence articulating its message were matched only by her brilliance in orchestrating our strategy and her tenacity in carrying it out. Ann is a tireless champion of persons with epilepsy, and we are so blessed that she generously and selflessly committed her time and talents to our cause.
Oh my
goodness. Guys, there's no doubt that without this wonderful, wonderful woman, SB 161 would not be law today. And Ann, we are so grateful for your sacrifice and dedication. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I think that when you're an Irish grandmother, an educator, they can't say no. We keep nagging them. But I want to say thank you to all of you in the room who really were part of the dream team that made this happen. And as Margaret Mead once said, it only takes a small group of committed people to change the world. And you did for over 79,000 students with epilepsy. Thank you.